His hand pressed the warm cobblestone. The sun at its
Damn it! I didn't get it before ads.
In it as he walked beside the wall.
So it's like you know it's cobblestone and it's warm because of the sun, and it's all reflecting on the character interacting with the environment. So you're not describing the environment, you're describing the character through the environment. We're gonna go for double tokes. Do do ba do boo boo ba do 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 boo 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 ba do ba do do boo boo ba do boo boo ba do boo 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 boo. Jack, get the cough out before the ad's done. So yeah, use your characters to describe the setting. Only describe the setting as it relates to the character, right? If the character doesn't interact with it, you don't need it. A simple summary with vague description is a lot easier. Like, they're in a house. You don't even need to say what it's made of until, you know, slowly build up the image. Sentence by sentence. Not try to cram it all together, but as characters interact with things, make things appear in your mind. Like, think of it like an empty lot in, like, a video game. This is kind of how I think about it. An empty lot in a video game, and then you put up your foundation, and then you figure out where you want to put what as you're building it up. And from there, you can decide, oh, well, I want, you know, that actually doesn't go there. That goes there. And I mean, a metaphor like this, like, you know, sometimes when I think about my story like that, I open the front door and immediately there's the bathroom. And then I notice there's no other doors into the house. And it's like, well, that story doesn't work because you're literally entering the story on a dead end. And Levi, are you talking about the sexy anime bitches? Welcome back, Blessed. Are you feeling better, good sir? We're about to start the reacts. Hell yeah, I am.
I made 2 viral videos about how to write men and how to write women, and some of the comments said that I should make a video on how to write children. Well, here it is. Now, just to be clear, we're not talking about how to write kids for children's literature, for picture books, or for MG or YA or something like that. No, we're talking about how to write.
Oh, that's what I told Terrible, but I want more. I almost want to focus on exactly what the characters notice, not just interacting with, but how they perceive and react to the environment emotionally. That's Pantalonium Yoctufecurdim. True, Sasia Yak. Yo, what's up? How's it going? Welcome. How are you? Self-diagnosed and self-treated 4 days of heat exhaustion. Thank you for the follow, Sasia Yak.
Thank you for following.
I really appreciate it. Welcome. How are you? Are you a reader? Are you a writer? Are you a purveyor of ideas and creativity and imagination? Do you enjoy trading ideas and evaluating the world of words?
Are you smoking?
Who?
You.
Why?
It's a dark spell. He's trying to summon a demon.
Smoking.
I don't know English, but I'll watch it, my friend. True, Pandemonium, Huck to a fuck down.
Yes, I'll say it. Her 3-pack a day voice.
That's amazing, Levi. I fucking love it. Hell yeah, brother. Celebrating my victory over death with a homemade quesadilla. Hell yeah, Blessed. It was epic. Fuck yeah, dude. That's what it's all about. But Callie, think about it in the way of, like I said with the two characters. You have two characters sitting in a room. One of them's focusing on the light because they're happy. One of them's focusing on the shadows because they're depressed. And using that as a contrast between the characters' emotions and stuff. And using, like, what type of character would they notice, right? Is this character... Let's say this character's always hungry, and anytime they enter anywhere, all they scan for is food. Maybe this character's paranoid, and anytime they enter somewhere, they always scan for danger. Maybe this character has absolutely no self-awareness or situational awareness, and just walks into stupid situations. And I think, like, the perfect scene that comes to mind for me is, like, Merry and Pippin in The Prancing Pony in Lord of the Rings, being like, yeah, that's Frodo Baggins! I know a Baggins! He's right over there! Right? They have no idea what the hell is actually going on in the situation, right? So using setting as characterization. Exactly. And that gives you a feeling of the character because of what they focus on in the scene. So that way you can have the two same scenes seem completely different because of how the characters focus on things, right? The one character thinks this is an inviting, great, amazing, food-full place, and the other character is very nervous and anxious, keeping to themselves and trying to, you know, not make a scene. And it's the clash between those characters, which would be in this case, it would be Sam and Frodo versus Merry and Pippin in the scene in The Prancing Pony, you know? It's like, look at both of their perspectives and how they view the situation. And it's a completely different right? Oh, my chat went through. I am back. True, Blessed. Okay, are you guys ready? Let's continue.
Kids and novels for adults. I'll go over 8.
I feel like that's very first person, you know? These movies where the camera is, like, focused just on what the characters see, or, oh my god, first-person shooters. True, Callie. It is getting inside of the character, of the mind of the character. That's the idea of the omniscient part of third person. Because you can have third person non-omniscient, where you're just the narrator and you don't have any idea about the inside of the character's minds, right? But then there's third person omniscient, where you have information inside of the character's mind. So it's almost like you're going from third person to first person by looking inside of the person's mind. Howdy all, maybe late, but better than never. True, Sean, at least you were on time yesterday. You better be on time tomorrow, because tomorrow's the makeup stream, guys. Tomorrow is Werewoman's stream. Tomorrow is Bikini Day. Don't miss it. It's going to be hot as fuck. And we're going to write some smut. I have an idea for a story. It's going to be great.
Of the embarrassing mistakes that you don't want to fall prey to when writing kids in your stories. But then I'll also suggest some more practical ways you can make sure your kids are well written and believable characters. The first mistake that I see semi-frequently.
I always look for 3 different ways I can do this. So I have a live setting as characterization. I need a third one. I'd say it's a little bit off, Callie, but like a summarization aspect. A way that you can state exactly what the building or the setting is without going into detail. So you use that to initiate, and then you evolve it into the scene itself, and then you look at it from the character's perspective. So it kind of flows in this unraveling of the setting, where we get this big picture, and then we slowly start to zoom in on different aspects. Like, one character zooming in here, right? So they're like there, and one character zooming in, and they're like, you know, over there. So you got like, you know, but the entire picture itself, setting abstraction, maybe abstract into concreteness. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. So you build an outline, like it's a house. Oh, now it's a brick house. Oh, now it's a large brick house. Oh, it's a steeped roof brick house. Oh, it's a 3-story house. Right? And you just keep building on that. And then it's like, oh, there's windows on the front that face towards west. So they're always for the sun. There's a Turkish song called Pantolonum Yoku Factorum. You listen to it? I'll try. Let's find out. Guys, what do you think? Let's do it. I'm down. Welcome to it. This one or this one?
Pantolonlarım yoktu, fakirdim. Pantalonsuz başıboş gezinirdim. Bu pantalon güzel, verir misin? Tam da üstüme oldu özel dikim. Yıllar önceydi, çok da fakirdim şimdi. Değilim, pantolon demiştim, sen de vermiştin pantolonlar evinde. Pantolonlarım yoktu, fakirdim. Pantalonsuz başıboş gezinirdim. Bu pantalon güzel, verir misin? Tam da üstüme oldu özel.
The pictures just do it. The shit is fucked.
Çok da fakirdim şimdi. Değilim, pantolon demiştim.
Pantalon in
sen de
Spanish is pants.
vermiştin
Yeah.
pantolonlar evinde.
I have no idea what it's saying, but that's fucking hilarious. I love it. Thank you for sharing. Someone tells about a man without panlotolnu. I don't know what that is, though.
Frequently is the accidentally precocious
Accidentally precocious child.
child. Now I say accidentally because there's nothing wrong with a precocious child, right? I mean, that's a great character to have. But the trouble is if you write it in a way where it seems like you don't realize that they're acting far older than their age. So what this looks like is if the child is acting really precocious in your story, and yet it sort of goes unmentioned in the storyline. And
He's not a
there's no
savant.
repercussions or any.
Sick of precocious child characters. Well, see, this is the difference between, like when you're talking precocious, you're talking, like, savant level, like, intelligence, right? Like the 14-year-olds that beat grandmasters at chess. Like, that's what we're talking about, right? Not like the ones that I'm talking about where it's like they're 12 but they speak 3 languages because they've been at boarding school for their entire fucking lives and that's all they've ever known. So it's like they have this intelligence on a book level, but they don't have, like, the life experience, you know? Versus someone who has, like, the life experience, and that's kind of the contrast between Duarte and Cullis, where Cullis has the life experience, but Duarte has the book experience because of his uprising, because of his family's wealth and potential, and, you know, his art and creativity and everything. But do you think that Duarte was precocious, or was he more... Yeah, I don't know.
Sort of reason for it. So if a 5-year-old is acting like a 15 or a 20-year-old and no characters in the novel react.
But then you look at something like satire, like Boss Baby, for instance, right? Where it's like absolute insane satire, where it's like hyperbolized to the point of ridiculousness.
To that, it seems really, really unrealistic. So how do you write a precocious child well? Well, for starters, I think that the adults in that child's life should be talking about it or pointing it out, like make it obvious that this is something different than the norm. The other trick that's really important is to make sure that this precocious child is socially exiled because they are precocious. A kid like this isn't gonna fit in with other kids their age. And a great example of this would be in A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. In that book, Meg is a very gifted girl, but she's having lots of social troubles at school, and that's because she simply just doesn't fit in. To me, that strikes me as a very realistic portrait of what a precocious child would be like. A second common mistake when writing children is the supernaturally well-behaved child.
Yeah. Think of all the shit that you did when you were a kid. All the retarded, dumb, stupid, fucked up things that you did when you were a kid. You had any reason for them? Nah, you were just a fucking kid. You know, we beat each other up with sticks, we whipped each other with branches, we fucking shot bow and arrows at each other. Like, we didn't steal. We didn't, like, break the law. We just, like, you know, we snuck out sometimes. You know. Like, that kind of shit. But it was never, like, breaking the law or doing anything stupid. It was just always, like, gathering up with your friends and having a good time. Just, you know, listening to some music, chilling out. But, like, we were rambunctious in our own way, right? We didn't fuck with other people, we fucked with each other inside of the group.
I have seen movies where parents will ask a child to go to bed and they'll like protest for like half a second and then suddenly they'll just like trundle off to bed all obedient like, and I'm like, hold on here. Like, that's the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen in my life. It would be more believable if like aliens had come in and kidnapped the child and took them up to bed. And I want to ask the author, like, have you been around children? Have you tried to put a child to bed? It would be easier to negotiate with the Taliban. So what's the upshot here? Don't make your child character too perfect. You have probably heard of Mary Sue's and Gary Stu's, which are female main characters, and male characters which are too perfect. And I would like to suggest the Cherub Stew and Cherub Sues as being too perfect of children. I claim that phrase. I came up with it, so make sure to cite me if you say that elsewhere. Now, to be clear, there are some authors who fail on the opposite side of the spectrum, where every single child and everything they write is constantly misbehaving, which I also find incredibly unrealistic. They're doing this because it's a really easy, cheap way to get conflict into the narrative and to make the adult parent viewers or readers like sympathize, but I think it's not true to how kids normally act. Like, it's usually a mixture of good behavior and
like a great example of this would be like my nephew, right? You promise him something and he'll act immaculate. The second he gets what he wants, completely fucking downhill bullshit, like unacceptable behavior. It's fucking rough.
bad behavior. Let's move on to the third mistake when writing children, the tiny adult syndrome. This is when child characters are written with the sophistication and reasoning of an adult. Now, if you want to play this off for laughs, that can actually work. I think of something like a young Sheldon. There is a young kid who acts far too old for his age, but it works because it's really funny, like it's his shtick. But if you're not going for laughs and you depict your child character thinking like an adult, it's not going to ring true to your audience. So here are 3 quick ways you can make your kid be more kid-like. 1, look for places where the kid won't be exactly logical. Like a kid is driving in a car, they see the moon and says, "Oh, the moon is following us. It wants to be our friend." That type of kid logic is not something that an adult would ever say, but it's the essence of what being a kid feels like. I also think your child character should have some wild or imaginative thoughts. When my kid was
I guess
younger,
that's
he
Dedar.
once asked why we
Do art. Like wanting to leave the tree, wanting to be an adventurer, questioning things, having crazy ideas about like his art and stuff like that. And like the personification of anything. The art, dead art.
couldn't put windows on the floor of our house. Why? Because he wanted to watch the ants down there. Would an adult think that or say that? Absolutely not. It has to come from the brain of a child. So you give them some ideas like that, and suddenly your readers are like, well, that is obviously a kid right there. And a third example would be deeply inappropriate questions. For instance, an adult has a conversation with a member of the opposite sex on the street, and the little kid's like, are you gonna marry her? So look for those type of opportunities where you remind the reader like, hey, this is just a kid. Like what they're saying is not the type of thing an adult would say. And quick note about characterization in general, whether it's for kids or for adults. If you need a little help with making your characters a little bit more real, check out my course, The Triangle Method of Character Creation, in my Bookfox Academy, or check out my novel course, which will help you with creating real and authentic characters that spring off the page. I'll put a link to that in the description below. If you're not subscribed already, you are missing out. The fourth mistake that some authors make when writing kids is rigid archetypes. Now, take note that I didn't say all archetypes. There's nothing wrong with an archetype, right? You can use them to create a character, and
Yes.
that's perfectly
That's
fine.
pretty much
The
what we did with
trouble
UR.
is when they're rigid.
And
what I
colors.
mean by that is that you don't change that character or evolve that character so they go a little bit beyond the archetype and seem like they're their own unique person. So let's look at 5 examples, and I'll show you for each one what the archetype is and then how to go a little bit beyond it. The first one is the spoiled child. And the best way to learn how to write this is to look at Willy Wonka by Roald Dahl. This is a master class in how to have a bunch of spoiled children, and yet every single one is uniquely individualistic in how they are spoiled. So you have a character like Violet, who is very brash and confrontational and also extremely competitive. And then you have a character like Veruca Salt, who is very entitled, she is very manipulative, and she uses tantrums strategically. And then you have good old Augustus Gloop, who's just dim and gluttonous. So if you want to write a spoiled child, perfectly fine, that's great. Just think about what traits you're going to give them that's going to separate them out from other spoiled children. The second archetype we could look at would be the innocent. And for an example of this, we're going to look at Cormac McCarthy's The Road. But this child doesn't remain just a prototypical innocent. He has phrases like carry the fire, and he has an immense sense of generosity and kindness toward others, even though he's living in this apocalyptic wasteland. Another archetype would be the genius. And I think of 7-year-old Mary in the movie Gifted. And one thing that helps to set her apart is it's not a normal father-daughter relationship. It's actually her uncle who is taking care of her. And I find that's a nice little twist that helps the movie not seem so predictable and routine. A fourth archetype would be the chosen one. And for this, let's look at the movie The Girl with All the Gifts. This girl is different because she is immune from the virus that causes the zombie apocalypse. But the author doesn't stop there. That would be a mistake. She would be a stereotypical character. Instead, she has this girl have a great love for learning and has her love Greek myths, especially Pandora. What that does is it just helps her make her a little bit more unique as a character. And the fifth kid archetype would just be comedic relief. Kids are funny. They're often put in stories just as a way to get laughs from the reader. And for an example of this, I think of
Little Miss Sunshine.
where we
Oh
have
my
a little
God.
girl who's traveling to a beauty pageant.
Such a good
but what
fucking
sets her
show.
apart and why she breaks out of this stereotypical archetype is that she doesn't exactly look like a prototypical beauty pageant girl. Like, she doesn't fit into that norm, and she certainly does not act like one on stage either. Anyway, it is fine to use broad archetypes for your child characters. Just do some work to make them individualistic and to make them seem different than other characters. A fifth mistake I see sometimes when writing
Dun,
child
dun, dun.
characters is oversimplifying their emotional lives. So I know that kids often can't articulate their feelings with adult sophistication, but that doesn't mean they're not feeling a lot of complex things, sometimes even contradictory emotions. They can be feeling both.
I'm retarded, guys. This should all be applied to Beastmen. Because Beastmen are the children in the book. Like, they're at that mental level, right? Where they're not fully developed. They're just, you know, enough to, like, get... They're above monkeys, but they're below humans, right? In intelligence. They can communicate, but they can't do, like, complex ideas. So they're, like, an 8 to 11-year-old, depending upon how intelligent they are among the species.
Anger and fear at the same time. They can be feeling both scared and excited at the same time. So my advice is don't reduce the children in your book to a single emotional state. The way I see this most often is with children, characters who are just angry all the time. They're just throwing tantrums all the time. That to me doesn't seem realistic. And my last point about child's emotional states is that kids flip from one emotional state to another like 1,000 times faster than adults do. So you can have a kid who's super, super sad, and then they're offered ice cream and it's like 1,000% happy. And vice versa, right? Their emotional states change really, really quickly. If you use that in your book, it'll feel authentic to the reader and also might provide a bit of a laugh. The sixth mistake is the old soul complex. Some child characters are simply too knowledgeable. One of the great things about kids is that they're often wonderfully naive. A really good example of how to do this would be in the novel Room by Emma Donoghue. In this novel, we have a child narrator named Jack, and he is imprisoned inside a very small room with his mother. And they're imprisoned by a guy called Old Nick, who's kept them there for the last 7 years when he's done exactly what you would expect to this woman, and the child is the result. Now, having a child narrator is literally the only way that this book could work, because it's dark enough as is. But when you see it through the lens of Jack, you see it through this very naive, pretty like happy kid who doesn't know there's an outside world. Like, he's happy to be with his mom and to live his life in this small room. It breaks your heart as a reader, but his naivete is what saves the novel. Just look for places in your book where your child character can be a little naive, either as a way to make your book a little more funny or as a way to soften what could be a really dark situation. Now it is time for the seventh mistake, diction level screw-ups. So there's two mistakes you can make here, right? One would be to have the words that your child character says be far too sophisticated for their age. It just doesn't sound like a kid would talk that way. And then the second one is just to make them a little bit too babyish. So my advice here is, if you know any real children of that age, make sure to hang out with them for a while before you write that section. And if you don't have access to a child of that age, make sure you look up some videos where you can see how a kid that age would actually talk. And even if you are a parent and had children at one point of the age of the character that you're writing about, it doesn't matter. I recently listened to audio of my kid when they were 4 or 5. They're 12 now. And the way he sounded.
Put this on top of that. Put that on top of there.
I mean, I forgot his stutter was that bad. I forgot like how high his voice is. I had really forgotten so much as a parent. So it's really important to remind yourself, oh, like that's how a 5-year-old talks. I totally forgot that. Now, if you want a child character to speak in a way that indicates they're far older than what they actually are, that's perfectly fine. My one piece of advice would be to make it selectively uneven. Like, most of the time they talk in this very sophisticated way, but sometimes something's gonna squeak out that reveals like, oh, like they're still just very much a kid. And lastly, the final mistake that we're going to look at.
That's kind of what Duarte is in that fact that he's like, he tries to present himself at it's more of a presentation thing about like, you know, he's supposed to be like high class. He's supposed to be like, you know, representing the family business, right? So he's always got this presentation air about him. But it's like when he's hanging with Cullis and the Adventurers Guild, it's like he loses that air and he like becomes himself.
Generational assumption.
Generational assumptions. oh, because I did this during my generation, they do this now. Nah, man, kids have changed.
If you are a Gen Xer or a baby boomer or something and trying to write a kid, which I guess would be Generation Alpha, right? Then there is going to be some different belief systems going on. If you interview a bunch...
Fuck ads. How'd we get ads, guys? Where did these come from? I don't believe it. Guys, I don't believe in ads, okay? And if I don't believe it, it doesn't exist. So thus ads don't exist. So thus you can still hear me. Does that logic track, guys? I can hear you, so sure. True, Levi. You are one of the few kind sirs who have, you know, spent the money to get rid of the ads. I appreciate it. Now you just have to endure me, you know, freaking out about ads. Fuck ads! Fuck ads! Okay. We are back.
Bunch of 8-year-olds, like 80% of them are going to list influencers being one of their top 3 jobs. That might surprise older folks quite a bit. Also, remember that kids have completely different celebrities than you do. My kids worshipped Dude Perfect for years and years
fuck is that?
they ever knew the names Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt. A third thing to think about is just different generational expectations. To a 6 or 7-year-old, it may be perfectly natural for them to have a phone because their friends have phones, while to someone who's slightly older, it'll be like, listen, kid, you want to wait on that. You don't want to be addicted to social media at your age. Also, different generations have vastly different expectations for stuff like online privacy. Some might say like, oh, I don't want any of my information out there, and other people just share everything gleefully. Yay, internet, come to me. And the 4th generational thing that you might want to focus on is just the type of slang that younger kids might be using. Like younger kids would say stuff like touch grass, or oh, that's mid, or that really increases my aura, or even say something about Riz, you know? You just have to know and really incorporate whatever slang or lingo that the kids are using these days.
We used to say, oh, I was
Fellow kids.
What?
So the final goal is to come up with a child character that doesn't have the diction and societal beliefs and expectations of, say, a Gen X author. So I recently